Hi everybody, it's Sarah Cree with Let's Make Art, and we like to watercolor every single week. We paint a new project, and it might seem like a lot, but it's not. It's just one project a week. You can take 1 hour out of your day to paint. Can you hear that construction noise?
We can hear the construction.
You're gonna hear that through the tutorial, but we're gonna power through because we're professionals, okay? And the show must go on. So,
because we're professionals.
So this week we are painting the jellyfish. Usually I have a reference photo here. I lost the reference photo. Like I said, professional. Okay, but it's gonna be great. This project is super fun. There's no outline, very free. We're doing lots of wet and wet techniques. So the steps to this project, there's just 4. The very first step, we are going to do the bell-shaped body, which is like this mushroom-shaped top of the jellyfish. Step number 2, we are going to do the oral arms. And I looked this up.
It's pretty weird.
Because in my step-by-step I use the word ribbons, which that's not the right name. So I thought, Sarah, how about you prepare yourself a little bit before this tutorial? So, oral arms is these curved like ones. Step 3, we are going to do the tentacles, which are the really thin, long little bits there. And then we're going to repeat all of that again for our second jellyfish. And then the very last step, we're just going to do splatters. That's our last one, not details. It's a good thing I didn't ask you.
And now you can't say every project ends in details.
It's true. I'm
Scary.
Changing it up.
Oh dear.
Okay, let's get.
That's a saw.
That's a saw. Our neighbors are redoing their building. Okay, let's do this. The brushes we are using are around 2 and around 6. Round 2 and round 6. They're like the same ones we always use, and you might not be sure of where to get brushes or what brand or any of that stuff. We sell them on our website, so just go ahead and take a look at that. Yes, we are using 4 colors. We're using amethyst, which is like a purpley color. We're using pink, we are using deep yellow, and we are using Tahoe blue. Okay. So to make our bell-shaped body, first we're gonna just paint it using water, and then we are going to drip in the color. It's called wet on wet. It's one of my favorite techniques. And before we start, we don't have an outline, but with your body, we're gonna do just like a curved circle. But I just wanna say that jellyfish are like fluid, they're moving all of the time. So if your body shape does not look like mine, that is okay. That's normal. Sometimes jellyfish look like a mushroom top. Sometimes they kind of have like a curve going out because they do you know that movement?
Yeah, that movement. I've seen that in a jellyfish. It's a dance move, I think.
I don't know, but you know what I'm talking about. So it could just be in its own different movement, and that's okay. So I'm going to take my round 6, I'm going to get just water, I'm going to kind of hit it off the side a couple of times so it's not totally dripping, and I'm going to start on the right hand side of my paper, kind of 2/3 of the way up, and I'm going to do just this kind of bell shaped using just water, and then I'm going to fill it in. Now you sometimes have to use the glare of the water to tell where your lines are. That's what I'm doing. I have to look to the side to see where I painted. And then we're gonna drop in colors. So I'm gonna take a little bit of this amethyst and a little bit of this Tahoe, mix it together, and I'm gonna go along the edge at first. And it should just move and kind of bleed across your paper. Now remember, with wet on wet, you kind of want to work kind of quickly because if you wait too long to put in your color, then your water would have dried. If that happens to you and your water dries, don't stress, just re-wet the area and you're fine. So I kind of went along the edge to put in my color. And now I can kind of see the shape of my jellyfish. I can kind of make adjustments to it if I don't love this shape. So I think I'm going to kind of do a little extra curve here, maybe like that. Again, your jellyfish does not have to match mine exactly. gonna drop in some color. And then in like the middle part where it's really light, I'm gonna drop in a little bit of this pink because I think it's kind of pretty. Now when you drop in the color and just like that, sometimes it will just stay. And see how it's not really moving around? But I don't really want polka dots on my jellyfish, which if you want polka dots on your jellyfish, you can leave that. It's your painting. You can do whatever you want. But for me, I want it to spread out a little, so I'm just gonna go in along the edges and just kind of help this color move a little bit so it's not so much like a polka dot. And you want to try, I kind of waited too long to do it, but try and do it kind of quickly so then it spreads. But if you're new to watercolor and you're just doing this for the first time, you're going to see that this paint and this water have a mind of their own. They're going to want to do their own thing, and you just kind of got to let them. You just got to let loose and just be like, water paint, I'm going to trust you. There we go. Okay, that's it for our body. That's it. Now, you can play with this as much as you want to, like if you want to drop in a couple droplets of water and see what that does, you are more than welcome to. The only thing I want you guys to keep in mind is that the more you kind of work that area of the jellyfish, like your paintbrush back and forth, the more the value color is going to even out. And then the more layers you do of dropping in color and dropping in water, it's going to create a puddle on your paper. And whenever it does that, sometimes your paper starts to warp. So just kind of keep an eye on how much water you have going on, what your paper is doing. I'm going to kind of stop there because it's really heavy. It's starting to get a puddle at the bottom here, and I just going to give it some time to breathe. We're going to move on to step 2. We are going to do the oral arms. And they use the oral arms, Keenan.
I'm excited about this fact.
Yeah, say it, say it. Do you remember it?
No, I can't remember this fact. I remember the fact, I don't know how to describe it.
The oral arms are used to like grab food, which are other animals.
Yeah, they do eat other animals, I remember that.
And then they like bring them in to their tentacles and their mouth. Their mouth is, I think, at the bottom of this bell shaped thing.
The bottom of their body.
The bottom of their body.
Yeah.
And then they eat them. That's what oral arms are for. They said similar to tongue tentacles. I don't really know what that is, but that's what they said. Moving on, oral arms. Okay, now if you look at jellyfish and the oral arms, they kind of have this ribbon feel to them where they're kind of ruffly, and they're kind of wavy, and they're kind of like twirly and a little bit thicker. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use just water to create my oral arms and then drop in color. So I'm still using my 6. I'm going to it's basically just going to be a wave of a line, and I don't want it like straight up and down. I'm kind of having it, since I'm doing one here and I'm doing one there, I kind of want a circular motion, so the eye of the viewer will want to keep going back in. If I try and do my jellyfish arm going this way, it's going to make my eye go off the paper, which is usually not what you want to do in art. You want to keep the viewer's eye interested in your painting, and so you can help that with directional lines. So I'm going to make sure that my curves are kind of going this way, and then that way it will keep this motion. Does that make sense?
It does make sense.
Fabulous. Okay, so I'm just using water. It might be a little bit colored from doing the body. That's okay. We're going to drop color in there anyway, so it's not a big deal. And I'm just going to use my 6 and do kind of like this curved line to the body. And then, while it's still wet, I'm going to switch to my 2. I'm going to grab some color. I'm going to use a mixture of blue and purple, or if you want, you can do just blue or just the purple. Whatever you want, make it your own. And then along one side, I'm going to do this like this, let me get a scratch paper so you guys can see. I'm going to be doing this along where it's wet. Can you see that?
Yep.
Now, as you can see, I waited a little bit too long to keep going, so it's not spreading. The color isn't spreading. And if that happens, it's not a big deal. You just have to re-wet the area. So I'm just going to make it wet again. I'm gonna grab some paint. There we go. And I'm gonna kind of do this up and down along one side. Now, it's okay if it seems thicker in some areas and thinner in some areas, because we're pretending that it's like a thick piece of ribbon that's almost twisted. And when you twist ribbon or something like that, it gets thinner because we're looking at it from different perspectives. So don't be like, oh, it's really thin up here, it's really thick down there, that looks bad. No, that's totally how you would actually see it in person, so don't stress. And then again, if your color is not really spreading how you want it to, there's nothing wrong with helping it along and just be like, come on little guy, spread. I don't want to do it too much though, because this kind of accidental element just from dropping in color and it spreading on its own is really, really cool. And if I were to take my paintbrush and go back and forth across this entire thing, I would lose these really interesting value changes that just happen naturally due to the wet on wet. So you can mess with it, but don't mess with it too much. You really want to embrace that kind of accidental element of this ribbony oral arm. Okay, so that's one. And I'm gonna try and do like 3 or 4. So there's an arm, let's do a second one. I'm switched over to my 6. Just using water, and you can have it be kind of as curvy or as wavy as you want. You can switch it up. This next one, I'm going to have it be a little bit more wavy, so I'm going to kind of go here, and then moving rather quickly, I'm going to grab my 2 and just go along the edge, doing this tiny, ribbony, almost like a scalloped edge. And that color is just naturally going to move and bleed out, which is super cool. Yeah, that looks great. Now, while it's wet, you can drop in a little bit of color. I'm going to drop in some pink. Now, just something to kind of keep in mind is when you're dropping in color like this, you don't want to go too crazy. It's because I have pink up here in the top part of the body. I feel okay putting pink here in the bottom part of the tentacles. So I'm gonna stay within this color palette for this one jellyfish. I'm gonna stay with the blue, pink, and purple. That's my home for this one, and I'll probably switch it up for this one. So feel free to like choose your color palette per jellyfish. You can mix it up to whatever you want, but you don't wanna go too crazy with the colors by dropping in like, if I try to drop in the complementary color to blue, which is orange, then when those mix, it would turn a bit muddy. So if you want to keep those colors nice and crisp, you do not want to use the complementary color on the painting. Complementary color is just, if you have a color wheel, what is across from it. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, we have a little video on color theory where I just show you how to make a color wheel, and you can look that up. It's on YouTube. Yeah. Okay.
It's really helpful.
It is helpful. So if you need to pause that and take a look so you know what I'm talking about, feel free to do that.
Also, you sometimes describe the color wheel on our lives.
I do.
Not always.
I don't know which one though. So what if I'm like, go through every single live,
just try all
and in
lives.
Some of them, I do a quick color wheel. Okay, there's tentacle number 2. That looks pretty cool. We're gonna keep on going. I'm gonna do number 3. This one I'm gonna try and keep a little bit thinner. This one got nice and thick. The next one, I'm gonna try and do it thinner just because I like variation. So I'm gonna use my 6 still. And this one, I'm gonna go here. Now I'm having all of my oral arms kind of meet up, kind of in the center of my jellyfish, like this middle part. So feel free to do that. Okay, now I'm going to use some blue again. And I'm just kind of doing this wavy, scalloped edge. I'll drop in a little bit of purple here. Okay. First of all, I love this project.
I do too.
Isn't that so cool? Like, look at the texture I got in this oral arm right here.
Oh, I know. This is one of my favorite techniques to watch develop.
Yeah, it's just like you put in water, you drop in the color, and you just leave it alone, and it's just gonna spread and do the coolest things. So really like embrace that, because it's so fun to see how like there's like an accidental element to it, and I love that about watercolor. Okay, so I'm gonna do another arm. And what I'm gonna do is, because I really want my jellyfish to feel full and layered, because those oral arms are kind of like put together in the center of the jellyfish. So you want it to feel like that's where it's coming from. And right here, it's feeling kind of evenly spaced. So I'm gonna do another arm, and I'm gonna kind of put it in the middle. And I'm just gonna go over what I already have done. So I'm gonna take my 6, and I'm gonna be like, this oral arm is kind of going this way, like that. And while that is wet, I'm gonna do this, and I'm just gonna go ahead and paint over what's already there. Because if you look at a jellyfish, these ribbons do overlap and are on top of each other. And jellyfish are also transparent. So you do kind of see them through. This project lends itself to watercolor very well, because you are gonna see one arm through the other arm, that kind of thing. So really have fun with this. Have fun with the layering. And I love that effect of dropping in that pink. So I'm gonna do that a little bit here. Okay, that feels pretty good. Now you can always take a step back and kind of look at that, but I feel good about my little oral arms. I'm gonna thin out this ribbon at the end here. Yeah, okay, that's step 2, which is my favorite step out of all the steps. And now we are going to do step 3, which are the tentacles. So the tentacles are the really long, thin, tentacles. Just long, thin string looking things. So I'm gonna use my round 2 for this, and I don't want it to be too distracting from everything that's going on here. So I'm gonna make sure I'm doing this in a light value. Now a light value is just when there's a little bit more water than paint. It's how we get a lighter color in watercolor. So instead of using white paint, we just add water to the paint that we have here. And the reason why I don't want to do it too dark is because I want these to seem really delicate. And I feel like if I did super, super dark lines, it might be distracting. While also I want to make sure these lines are thin. And sometimes if you have a lot of really dark paint on your brush, it's harder to get thin lines. So we really want to get the feel that it's wispy, that they're barely there, that they're really transparent. So I'm just going to take a really light wash, and I'm going to start adding in the tentacles. Now, when you add in the tentacles, you do not want to do straight lines. That does not go in with the vibe of it's moving in the ocean like this. So they're going to have a slight wave to them. So just using my round 2 and more of a vertical hold, so my paintbrush is more up and down, I'm going to do a nice thin line kind of going like that. And there's one. And when it goes through the ribbons, or the, sorry, the, what did I call them? Oral arms, it is going to pick up some of that color that's there. That's okay. I think that actually has a really cool effect. And these ones are going to kind of, I kept these kind of coming out more the edges, so the edges didn't feel so empty. And I still want to keep in mind this kind of motion. So some of them are more curved, some of them are a little bit like more of a soft wave. Kind of play with it. Some of them are short, some of them are long. Have variation in there. And I think I'll do one more and then I'm going to stop, because I don't want to go too crazy with my tentacles. Yeah, that looks really cool. That looks so cool, you guys. Good job. Okay, that's our jellyfish. That is number 1. Now we are going to do number 2. And so all I'm going to do is just flip my paper over, because it would be easier for me to do the same thing going the same direction than to try and do it all upside down. Okay. Sorry, I got a water drop on my paper. I'm just gonna pick that up. Now, I do want this to kind of feel balanced, so I'm gonna put the head kind of over here, and then the jellyfish, the arms and the tentacles kind of coming this way, and then that's gonna give me my almost kind of circular composition. And we're just gonna start over with our steps. We're gonna do step 1, we are going to do that bell-shaped body. And I'm only gonna use water for this. Now, I'm okay still using my water from my first jellyfish. It has a blue hint to it, but I don't think that's going to be too distracting. If your paint color is really, really dark, don't be afraid to switch it out. Maybe I'll use this one. That's from our last paint along.
Cream soda.
It does look like cream soda. It's just from our horse. Okay. So I'm going to do, and this one I'm going to have more of a mushroom shape. So it's going to have kind of like that rounded top. And then I just fill that in with water. And I'm going to use purple on this one. Now this one I'm doing a different color palette. And remember, you can use whatever colors you want. You can mix it up. Don't be afraid to make it your own. I'm going to drop some pink in there. And because I don't want it to feel like polka dots, I'm just kind of like using the side of my brush to spread it a little bit. And then I do want to introduce a little bit of this yellow, but this is where you have to be careful because yellow and purple are complementary colors. So if they mix too much together, they're going to get really muddy and brown. So I'm just going to do a little drop here and a little drop there and just kind of be aware of it touching my purple. If it mixes and you get some dark areas a little bit, it's not the end of the world. It's not a big deal. But if you kind of take your paintbrush and just go back and forth across this entire thing, then you are going to lose that purple, pink, yellow color, and it's just going to turn kind of brown.
That already looks really cool.
Yeah, look at that. And then I kind of want to darken like the bottom, so I'm going to do a little bit of purple around the bottom of that. And if you want the colors to be a little bit more powerful, you can do another kind of drop of color in there. And I'm just going to spread it out a little bit. That looks cool. Okay, there's step 1. There is my body for my jellyfish, and now I'm going to move on to step 2, which are the ribbons. And because I'm staying within this color palette of the pink, yellow, and purple, I'm going to do my ribbons in that color. However, I'm going to keep, whenever I do yellow, I'm going to keep that with my pink. So I'm going to do some oral arms that are pink and yellow, and then I'm going to do some that are pink and purple. I'm not going to do any that are yellow and purple because that will just kind of turn muddy. So again, still using my 6, I'm going to do that same kind of motion where the arms are kind of going this way. And you can play with the thickness of your line. This one I did a thinner line because I want you guys to see what that looks like. I'm just going to grab some pink and do that kind of scalloped edge.
That sounds delicious.
A scallop. There, and then I can drop in a little bit of yellow if I want by this pink. And if you ever want to thicken up some areas, you are more than welcome to do so. The nice thing about working wet on wet is I feel like you can really mess with, you can make changes to it as you go.
I just like how it develops.
Yeah.
That's my favorite.
It's so cool. Watercolor is so cool. I love it so much. Okay, so there is a oral arm. I keep on calling it opal arm. That's what's throwing me off. And I'm like,
opal arm.
Yeah, I'm like, that's not right. Okay, I'm gonna do another arm here. And I'll make this one a little bit more purple. I accidentally am using a 6 to do this.
Risky.
But it's fine. I need to re-wet this. It didn't get wet enough. See how it's not spreading as well as I would like? Yep. So I just got to re-wet it. Not a big deal. So you can totally do this using the 6. It might be a little bit harder to get those kind of delicate curves, but it absolutely gets the job done. And I'm going to drop in a little bit of pink. Now I wouldn't really want to drop in blue to this either because I just feel like since I didn't use any blue in the top, if I tried to introduce blue in the bottom, it might be like, where the heck did that come from? But also there's like literally so many different types of jellyfish that I'm sure there are some where the body is different colored from the arms.
With no color at all.
Yeah, so feel free to do whatever you want. And I'm just gonna keep on going here. And don't be afraid to let these arms overlap. Now because I ran into my purple, I probably won't add a lot of yellow into this one. And you can mix the pink and the purple to get a different kind of color. They'll probably do that a little bit on their own, and you'll get this really pretty color here. Now, let's say you want to do another arm. You want it to overlap, but you want to put some yellow back in there. Then what you can do is for this last arm that I'm putting in here, if I want it to overlap, I can just lift up my paper and skip the tentacle. Oh, it touched that purple. That's okay. That's only a little bit. But just try and avoid the colors if you want to do, put some yellow back in there. Oh my gosh, that looks so cool.
I know, I love that body.
It's just, I love it so much. Okay, that was step 2. Now we're gonna do the tentacles. And remember, really light pressure, keep your brush vertical hold so it's just on that point so you get that thin line, and use light colors. So I'm gonna use a little bit of this pink. And remember, keep these curved. You just want to think of like that movement of things in the ocean, how it has that like rhythm to it where it goes up and down, up and down, up and down, that kind of thing.
That dance move you were talking about.
Yeah. Now, you can have them coming from the side and the center too, so they can kind of, since it's such a light color that we're doing, if you have some coming out of the middle, it won't really bother anything that's going on in there, so you're totally fine. And you can even do some in this little yellow mixture too. I feel like it needs one in the middle. And you're gonna see this as you're painting this. I'm looking at it right now and I'm like, okay, those look good, but now my center, it's really obvious that there aren't any really thin lines in that center. So I just have to like pay attention to that, be like, okay, this one needs a little tentacle here. There, that's all it needs. Okay, there we go. So here are our jellyfish. They look so cool. And now we're going to do the very last step, which is the splatters. So for the splatters, make sure you clear off anything you do not want paint on, because you will get paint everywhere. I'm just gonna use my paintbrush for this, but there's different ways you can do it. I know like an old toothbrush works really well. If you just like put it in paint and then like just run your thumb across it, it'll just like, I'm just gonna use my brush. And I'm just gonna pick up the colors that I've used here. I'm gonna start with pink. So I'm making sure my brush is wet, hitting it off a couple of times, grabbing some pink color, and then I'm just gonna flick it off my finger. And then there's pink, I'll do some purple. And flick. And I'm just kind of going across so I get an even spread of color. Pick up a little bit of yellow. And some blue. And now I want to get some bigger splatters because all of these splatters are about the same size and I want some a little bit bigger. So for that, let's say I get some blue here. I'm going to make sure my brush is really, really wet. So this is one of those cases where it's okay if it's a little bit dripping from the paintbrush. So I can see how full. Can you see that? How like it wants to drip off my brush?
Yep.
So I'm just gonna take that and I'm just gonna like, it's like this motion.
Stabbing.
Stabbing. And you can have it. You can go as crazy you want. I'm gonna do a little bit of purple over here. The blue looks really good over here with this bluish jellyfish, but I want to do some like purple over here to match my other jellyfish. Yeah. And I'm just really picking up a lot of water and letting it kind of go crazy. And it will catch. See how that water drop catch that arm? But guess what? That's super cool. So don't get mad if that happens. That's how you make it your own. That's how it's yours, is if it has these kind of happy accidents going on. And that's it. That's it for a jellyfish. This is a super fun project. I'm so glad you guys painted this with me. I can't wait to see how yours turns out. Every one of these is gonna look so different, which I think is so cool. So don't be afraid to share it. If you paint on, if you post it on Instagram, tag us in it. Our Instagram account is Let's Go Make Art. You can use the hashtag Let's Make Art. If you're on Facebook, you can tag us in it. We also have this really wonderful Facebook community called Let's Make Art Together, where it's very, very supportive and encouraging. So if you don't feel comfortable posting your artwork on your personal feed, you can go to that group. You do have to ask to join. I pretty much accept everybody. And you can post it there, and it's just this really wonderful group where we celebrate every stage. So even if you're a beginner and you're just like, I don't know if I'm really proud of this, that's okay, share it anyway. It's scary putting yourself out there, but it's worth it because I think that when you're courageous, that's contagious and other people want to try it and they want to do something new. So don't be afraid to post it even if it's not perfect. So I think that's all I need to say. You can get this kit at our website, letsmakeart.com. If you don't have any of the supplies, we carry all of that stuff for you, so you can just look there. And I think that's all I gotta say. Okay, bye you guys.